Okay, so we are on to part 14 and we're on to section 3, which is refining the initial build. So when you vibe code and you plan the whole thing out really nice and then you go through and you execute all your prompts, there is little or no chance that your application is going to work at that point. And don't even think it's going to work. You're going to get into it. You're going to see all sorts of things that are either missing or they don't work. It's going to throw errors. It's going to throw console errors. That's just the way it is. And the idea that you would want to refine your prompting so that it builds a perfect first draft is really just not worth doing it. And that is actually why we did vibe templates, because you're going to see in section 3, this is possibly the longest and most tedious part. Because at this point, we really haven't done anything technical. We put together a project plan, or we had Claude Sonnet 4.5 help us put together a requirements doc. We put together a tech stack. We put together design notes based on some pretty decent principles of coding. But now we're at the position where we need to be good vibe coders, because we are refining what was built and we're going through a big, long bug fix process. So let's get started. And I'm going to get started by going over to Chrome. So I'm going to start by running the application. Now the application is at, in my case, it's at localhost 8888. So let me start by logging out. And so now this was the login screen. So if I go to localhost 8888 and I'm not logged in, this is what I'm going to get. I'm going to get this landing page, which I kind of like. It's kind of attractive. Then I'm going to go to the login page. Now I'm going to go to the login page, and Opus was nice enough to create a demo account for me. So it's demo@todotracker.com, and the password is demo123 exclamation point. Okay, so now I'm logged in and I'm at my page. Now it didn't like the fact that I used demo123 as my password because that's in a data breach. But as you can see, we've now landed on our application, and this is a pretty decent looking application for something that's vibe coded with no additional prompts. So we have our side nav to the top, we have our top nav, and it looks like we're in a pretty good shape to actually get started. Now, there are some tricks to communicating with the large language model, one of which is something that we built into the Claude MD file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to say inspect. So what I did is I inspected on this total task. Now one of the lines in our Claude.md is that anytime we have a div tag, we want to give it a unique identifier. So in this case, this blue box is called stats total tasks. If we go over to this pending one, right click on this, this one is called stat pending task. Okay, so this div tag, if I say that I want to switch total tasks and pending tasks, this is a way for me to communicate effectively with Claude. I can go into Claude, I can say, let's switch the location of stat pending tasks and stat total tasks, and it will definitely know what I'm talking about. So you'll see that when you right click on almost any of the div tags, so there's going to be an outer section to this. So there's actually a stats row, and as I mouse over the code, you can see that it kind of highlights what it is that we're looking at. So this is the best way to communicate. And now there's a couple of things. One of the reasons that I really like using Bootstrap is that with Bootstrap, all of these things have names. Okay, so this right here, this is a card. Okay, and you see that it says statistics card row. Okay, so this is a card. So all these things, this is called the side nav over here. If we had one at the top, it would be called the top nav. This is called a button. And over time, what you're going to learn is you're going to learn the vocabulary that's being used in Bootstrap. And that makes it much easier for you to communicate with the model, because we're going to have a lot of communicating that we need to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for my first bug. So let's see. And I want it to be a fairly simple bug that we're going to fix. And I'm going to go into, let's just go into all tasks. I'm going to say a new task. We just got to find something that's broken. Put in my new task. and I hit Save Task, and it actually created it. So that's kind of neat. So let's come over here. I've got this new task called My New Task. Now I want to check it that it's completed. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click on the checkbox, and oops, I got some code that I'm not supposed to get. This is not what the checkbox is supposed to look like. So now I have to figure out how to communicate this to the large language model. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I've got a terminal open, because I think this is my start of my session for today. So I'm going to type in terminal. Okay, and so I am in my SAS YouTube project directory, and I'm going to start by opening up Claude. All right, so let's figure out how we're going to have this conversation about what's broken. So the screen we're in is tasks.php, so I'm going to say in tasks.php on rows, how do I want to do this? I'm going to say on, in a task row, when I click on, and then what's this called? When I click on BI check circle, which is actually the mark as complete button. So when I click on the mark as complete button, I could put that in quotes, but I'm not going to at this point, I get JSON. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to copy it. And then I hit paste, and I just pasted the whole thing in. So I'm actually using Haiku. So before I logged into the screen, I switched my model over to Haiku. Let me, as soon as this does its thing, I will let you know how to get to Haiku. Now, my reason for using Haiku in this situation is that Haiku is extremely fast. So Haiku already, in just a couple of seconds, created what it needs to change. So it says, do you want to create update status html.php? Now, I'm not 100% sure what, it must have been missing this. Okay, so I'm going to hit yes. Now it's going to update task table.php. And it's testing the fix. And then it's going to say, do you want me to push it to Git? And I'm going to say yes. So notice how fast this fix, now again, it has to work, but I'm going to go back to my page. I'm going to reload. And so my new task now is saying it's completed. So it did actually work, but it did not display properly on the screen. So now I'm going to come over to my checkbox. I'm going to click check, and it's completed. And it was just, page didn't even flash. That's the beauty of HTMX. And we've got our first fix done. So this is a pretty simple fix that worked right out of the box. So let's look at some other things. And now at this point, I'm just kind of randomly going through looking for stuff that's broken, looking for PHP errors, looking for 500 errors. So let me go back to the dashboard. So we have total tasks as 10. It was 9 before, so I feel pretty good about that. Let's go back to all tasks and make another one pending. So we've got this task called complete project proposal. You notice I have a link here. Let's click on it. Okay, so the bug here is when I click on the link, it is not populating with the information to edit the task. So we're going to come back over here. We're in task.php. When I click on, I'm going to do an inspect. When I click on the I'm just going to call it the name, or the class. Here it is. It's task description. So when I click on the, did it give me an ID? I'm just having a little trouble. Okay, when I click on the row, a ref on the row for a task to edit it, I do not, the pop-up window is not populated. Okay, so notice sometimes coming up with the right words. Now, with haiku, it's really important that you actually get the words right. With Opus, you could almost just say, clicking on the name of the task doesn't work, and it'll figure out why it doesn't work. Now, that's very expensive to do it that way. This is the cheapest way to go, but we're going to say in task.php, when I click on the aref on the row for a task to edit it, the pop-up window is not populated with the task. So we're running. It's read 317 lines. Now it's going out. Just doing its thing. It found it in almost no time whatsoever. There's a get endpoint that returns the data task. Now I need to implement load task for edit function to fetch the task. Now this is a lot of code that it added. So this is kind of supporting my theory that when it originally builds the application, it's a long way from being built. In this case, it's a really long way from being built. So we're implementing it. We just implemented something in get.php. Now it says it's testing it. And then it's going to ask me if I want to push to Git, and I do. Okay, so now let's see. I'm going to reload the page. I'm going to click on first task, and there it is. So I'm going to change it to pending. And the reason I'm changing it to pending is I want to see if the front screen actually changes the count. So I'm going to hit task or save. Now when I go back to the dashboard, I should have 3 pending. Beautiful. Okay, and I have 2 in progress. So let's test the in progress. By coming over here, going back to my tasks, and now I'm going to click on the button over here. And it did work, and I'm going to change it to in progress, and I'm going to save it. And then now when I go back to the dashboard, we have 3. All right, that's beautiful. So it looks like this is going pretty well. I do have an overall progress bar. 6 of 12 tasks have been completed. All right, so next thing I want to test is let's test this quick add task. What needs to be done? Okay, we'll just call it debug the app. Okay, so this is going to create a task really quickly. I'm going to click add. All right, if you noticed, there was some JSON that appeared on the screen. We do not want that. So in dashboard.php, when doing quick add task, JSON flashes on the screen while the post is being done. Okay, so in dashboard.php, doing quick add task, JSON flashes, because it is fast, on the screen while the task is being saved. Now, I'm going to assume that it knows that because I pointed it out, it knows it shouldn't be doing that. Okay, so again, we're in haiku. This is why I like haiku. It's really fast. At some point here, I could switch to Claude or I could switch to Sonnet and Opus, and if I do that, you're going to be really disappointed in how slow it is doing the fix. Okay, Now when you do a quick add task, you'll see a clean toast notification without any JSON flashing on the screen. Okay, you're going to get to see what a toast is. A toast is a little like green bar that's going to pop up that says completed. So we're going to say fix the toast problem. Okay, hit add. Nope. All right. Still did not work. Now, in Claude, I would just say still did not work. Now, we did see the toast. The toast did appear, but JSON displayed directly above. Now, in this case, let's go over here. We're going to right-click on it to inspect it. Let's just see. In the quick add, so it displayed in this little section right here. You see this inside of quick add response. Jason. Okay, so this is why it's so important that we give everything an ID tag. So the toast did appear, but JSON, I'm going to say also, displayed inside ID equal quick add response. Okay. Notice this time it did not ask me if I wanted to commit. So it's kind of interesting. Sometimes it asks you things, sometimes it doesn't. All right. We're going to say fix second toast problem. Perfect. Task created successfully. All right. I'm going to say this time the toast display is very fast. Please have it display on the screen for 5 seconds. How is Claude doing? Claude is actually doing very good. We're going to say 3. All right. Perfect, I found it. The toast is all ready to display. However, the issue might be the page is reloading before the toast can be displayed. Let me check the quick add component again. All right, let's see. Okay, that was better. Okay, so we did get it. Now, notice our overall progress is dropping because we're getting more and more tasks. And so this looks good. Okay, so now let's look and see what happens when we click on detailed. All right, so this gives us the ability to enter the tasks completely. Okay, so we have a new task button up here. We have a detailed task button up here that does the same thing. And then we have a quick add of the task. So we definitely have some ways to add tasks. Now, let's add some functionality is the next thing we do. Now, what I want you to do is on the dashboard, if a user clicks on the card stat total, now let's not do the total one, let's do the pending one. So if the user clicks on the card stat pending tasks, we want to display all tasks but only show pending. Let's see if we can do this from, actually let's just make sure. Are all the tasks here? Okay, let's do this. Okay, so let me get this again, inspect. So this is a little bit more complicated. So we're going to say if the user clicks on the card, stat pending tasks, we want to navigate to the all tasks screen or a similar pending tasks screen. And display only the pending tasks. So as you can see, there's a lot of refinement that these initial builds need. So it's pretty great. I mean, this is a pretty decent looking application, but you do notice that there's just a lot going on with it. Okay, so we're making the stats cards clickable. This is interesting. So it didn't. Now, this is one of those things where I asked it to just do the pending stats card. Now let's see if it does all the stats card, because that'll be definitely interesting. Okay, it's going to commit the changes. Okay, so it did its thing. Let's reload. Now let's click on pending. Okay. What I wanted to do now is in the tasks page title. All right, so in tasks.php, if the page is filtered to pending tasks or another type of filter, change the title to pending tasks or the appropriate title. And then we want to know that we need to know the name of the title. And it is tasks page title. So in this case, because it's haiku, although haiku is looking pretty good, but because it's haiku, I want to really, I'm going to say ID equal tasks page title to pending tasks or the appropriate title. Now you can see how when you're doing this for a big application or even a big template, you can end up putting in hundreds of prompts. And by the time we're done with this, we will have hundreds of prompts. Don't know if I'm going to show you all the prompts, but at the end, I want this to be a usable template excuse me, that we can use in a lot of different situations. And in section 4, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about building unrelated features into this app. All right, so let's reload. There it is, pending tasks 7. It's even got the count. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So let's go on to the next thing. So we're going to go back to the dashboard. We went back to to-do tracker. Let's go up here to demo user. Let's see if any of these things work. So let's go to profile. Okay, so we got profile.php not found. Now, what we want to do here is decide who's going to design this. Are we going to let Claude design this just by going into Claude Code and saying 404 error and profile.php and let Sonnet or Haiku just do its own thing? Or do we want to go back to Claude Code or Claude Desktop and get a really good, really detailed prompt to build out the profile.php page. I think in this case, we want to do the second thing. So we want to create a decent prompt to build out profile.php. So let's end this session here and we'll go on to the next session. Now, if you haven't yet, hit like and subscribe. Helps me out a lot. And let's get going on to the next one.